Do you know where she got it? Marcus asked, barely keeping the tremble out of his voice. She never said, just told me it came from someone who meant a lot to her, and that one day I'd understand. Marcus straightened up, dazed. He offered to drive her home in exchange for the help. She hesitated, clearly debating whether to trust the guy. Eventually, she nodded. Sure, but I get shotgun. The 15-minute drive was filled with questions disguised as small talk. Marcus probed gently. School, family, where she lived, who had taken her in after Loretta passed. I stay with Aunt Peaches and Uncle Dre now, she said. They've been great. You always lived around here? He asked, keeping his tone casual, fingers gripping the steering wheel tight enough to leave marks. Since I was about 3. Before that, she hesitated. Mom didn't talk much about it. Just said I came from a place called Willow Haven, an orphanage. It shut down soon after. Marcus's heart nearly skipped a beat. Willow Haven. It was real, she remembered. You're sure about that name? She nodded. Why, you know it? He inhaled deeply. I did. A long time ago. They reached a modest houses mall, painted blue, but with a tidy garden and a porch swing that squeaked in the breeze. Talia unbuckled. Thanks for the ride. Wait, he said, pulling a card from his wallet. Talia, if you ever need anything, no matter what it is, you call me, all right? She took it with a puzzled look but nodded, then bolted up the path. The ring sparkled in the dying sunlight as she waved goodbye. Marcus sat there, unmoving, heart thudding in his chest. Then he grabbed his phone and hit speed dial. Put me through to Rourke. I need everything you can find on a girl named Talia Brooks and her adoptive mother Loretta. What Talia didn't see, as she laughed on the porch with her uncle, was the way Marcus Langston stared at her door haunted. Because 12 years ago, he thought he'd lost something forever, and now it had found him. That roadside meeting was no coincidence. It was the first tremor in an earthquake set to shatter a billion-dollar facade. What unraveled next would link a shut-down orphanage, a monstrous real estate empire, and a girl with a mind that could fix the world done broken piece at a time. If you think this is just a story about a car and a kid, think again. This is about legacy, betrayal, and a ring so dangerous, it might just burn an empire to ash. Marcus Langston hadn't slept in 3 nights. Enlarged photographs of the emerald ring taken discreetly by his investigator were scattered across his penthouse desk like puzzle pieces. The same ring he had handed to a little girl named Talia, in a place once called Willow Haven, with a promise, I'll come back for you. He never did. In the towering headquarters of Langston Holdings, Marcus sat hunched at his desk, surrounded by folders and reports. 12 years ago, his father, Preston Langston, had snatched the Willow Haven property for a laughable price, under the excuse of financial mismanagement. Within weeks, Marcus had been named CEO. Coincidence? Not likely. Mr. Langston, his assistant buzzed. Evan from Legal's here. He's brought the files on Project Pinnacle. Project Pinnacle Langston Holdings' gleaming new flagship development, being built right on top of the demolished Willow Haven site. Marcus shoved the older reports out of sight just as Evan entered. I've got the Willow Haven acquisition docs, Evan said, puzzled. Not sure why we're dredging these up. Your father insisted they be locked away and untouched. My father, Marcus said coolly, is roasting in Florida's sun and collecting golf trophies. I run this company now. As he sifted through the documents, something snagged his eye. Irregular bank transfers, shady ones. But worse, a list of relocated children from the orphanage closure. Talia Brooks's name circled in red. Next to it, Special Case Contact PL. That's when Ramirez, his PI, called. Found Loretta Brooks. Died in a crash last year. Brakes failed. Sketchy circumstances. And the adoption records? Marcus asked. Jaw clenched. Gone. As far as any official doc is concerned, Talia Brooks never stepped foot in Willow Haven. Then dig deeper, Marcus snapped. Find out everything about her current guardians. Meanwhile, Talia was in her Elementher aunt and uncle's backyard workshop, her sanctuary. Tools lined the walls like a shrine, the scent of motor oil thick and familiar. Any luck with that ancient radio? Uncle Dre asked as he walked in, wiping his hands. Talia grinned, holding up a restored 1950s AM/FM unit like a trophy. It's alive again. Just needed a few wires resoldered. Dre ruffled her hair proudly. You're a wonder, kid. You talk to machines better than most people talk to people. Uncle Dre, you think Loretta would be proud of me? She'd be bursting, girl. You've got her fire. Talia's fingers spun the emerald ring absently. I met this rich guy the other day. His car died, and I fixed it. He saw the ring and froze, like he'd seen a ghost. Dre went still. What guy? Marcus Langston. Gave me his card. She handed it over. Renee, standing in the kitchen doorway, dropped the dish towel she was holding. Her face went pale. Talia, honey, she said carefully, remember we promised we'd tell you the truth about Loretta when the time was right? I think, Dre said gravely, that time just arrived. That night, the story unfolded. How Loretta once, a nurse at Willow Haven, had taken Talia and fled the moment the place shut down. How they changed their names and lived in the shadows, always careful, always quiet. Your mother left this, Renee said, handing over a yellowing envelope. She told us to give it to you only if a Langston ever came looking. With shaky fingers, Talia opened it. My dearest Talia, if you're reading this, someone has found you. You must know the truth. Back in Marcus's condo, Ramirez called again. Sir, we've got a problem. Someone else is poking around Willow Haven. A journalist named Malcolm Hayes. What does he know? Marcus asked. Too much. And he has a theory that certain kids were selected. Children with, how do I put this, unusual gifts. The next morning, a sleek black SUV idled outside Talia's school. Inside, two men in sharp suits watched her leave with her friends. That her? The girl with the emerald ring, yeah. Mr. Langston Sr. wants to speak with her, immediately. What they didn't know was that Dre had tailed them from 2 blocks away. When the SUV moved, he made a quiet call to a number Loretta had drilled into his head. Malcolm Hayes, Dre said when the line picked up. It's about Willow Haven, and a girl with a ring. I've got what you've been chasing. At Langston Holdings, Marcus faced down his father Preston, who had flown in unannounced and was already red-faced with suspicion. What's this about digging into Willow Haven? Preston barked. We buried that place for a reason. I found Talia Brooks, Marcus said flatly. The girl with the emerald ring. Preston's face paled, then hardened. So what? She's a leftover, a ghost. What matters is Project Pinnacle. Billions are at stake. Don't lose your head over some orphan. Marcus narrowed his eyes. What was so special about her? Preston let out a low, almost pitying chuckle. You really don't get it? Some children are valuable. They're gifts, those can be monetized. She fixes things, Marcus whispered, like he was realizing it for the first time. She sees broken machines and just knows. Preston's eyes gleamed. Imagine the military contracts, the inventions, the tech. That ring? Just bait. Why do you think we bought Willow Haven? Neither of them knew that, miles away, Talia was already reading the rest of Loretta's letter, learning about who she really was, what had been done to her, and what the ring truly unlocked. Not just a memory, not just a gift. A key. A literal key to encrypted files hidden away years ago, records capable of burning Langston Holdings to the ground. The pieces were moving into place. On one side, a ruthless dynasty determined to protect its secrets. On the other, a 10-year-old prodigy with a grease-stained shirt, a gift she barely understood, and a ring worth more than any fortune. Caught between them, one man who now had to decide whether he was protector or predator. The boardroom on the 49th floor of Langston Holdings pulsed with nervous energy. Senior execs, pale-faced and twitchy, whispered among themselves. Preston Langston had called a surprise emergency meeting, and his usual icy control had shattered into visible rage. "Where is my son?" he barked, slamming a fist onto the glass conference table hard enough to rattle the water pitchers. He was due an hour ago. As if on cue, the double doors swung open. Marcus entered with slow, deliberate calm. At his side, a stern woman in a dark suit, someone no one at the table recognized. Apologies for being late, Dad, Marcus said smoothly. This is Federal Prosecutor Clara Benton. She has a few questions about Project Helix. Preston's complexion drained to chalk. Project Helix, the classified code name for the long-buried program focused on identifying and manipulating children with unique talents. A name never meant to leave the shadows, let alone be uttered in a room full of government suits. What the hell do you think you're doing? Preston hissed across the table, his voice venomous. Marcus walked to the large screen at the front of the room and connected his laptop. What I should have done years ago, he said. Exposing the truth about Willow Haven and the other 5 institutions you dismantled over the last decade and a half. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up with a stream of documents, photos, and surveillance footage. Names, case files, timelines, all converging on one reality. 48 children, chosen for their gifts, exploited in secret trials, shuffled through the system like disposable assets. You broke the law, Preston growled. Those are internal documents. You're talking corporate theft. I'm talking about crimes, Marcus shot back. Unauthorized testing on minors, falsifying identities, buying silence with bribes, erasing lives with intimidation. The screen switched to grainy black and white footage. A woman, Loretta Brooks, fleeing down a dark hallway with a bundled child in her arms. A second clip. Preston barking to security. Find her. That girl has tactical potential. She is not to disappear. 3 staff members at Willow Haven died in accidents in the following weeks, Marcus continued, including Loretta's brother after he started asking questions. You don't understand the consequences, Preston started, but the doors opened again. And in walked Talia Brooks. With her were Uncle Dre and a man with a camera rig strapped to his chest. Malcolm Hayes, investigative journalist for the Boston Chronicle. Talia, Marcus said softly, you didn't have to come. Yes, I did, she replied, voice calm and clear. Loretta always told me this day would come, that I'd have to face the men who made us run. Preston stared at her, eyes narrowing. The mask of fury gave way to cold recognition. So you're Project 17? I expected someone taller. And you're the man who had my mom killed, Talia said, staring right into his eyes. Her brakes didn't just fail, did they? Preston smirked. You'd never prove it, and you forget who I am. One call and this all vanishes. Talia reached into her backpack and pulled out the emerald ring. Her fingers twisted the stone, revealing a hidden compartment. From it, she extracted a chip the size of a thumbnail. Loretta was smarter than you gave her credit for, she said. She embedded this into the ring. A secure drive. Backup files of everything Little Angels, Project Helix, even your classified meetings with military scientists, discussing the use of gifted children in strategic warfare. For the first time in decades, Preston Langston was silent. This is broadcasting live, Malcolm Hayes added, pointing to his streaming gear. To our newsroom, to every social platform. Over 12,000 people watching. So, smile. Marcus turned to his father, voice now a low blade. It's done. The feds offered me a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for immunity. He leaned in. As for you, you'll be explaining everything to a jury. Just then, federal agents stepped into the room. Preston tried to stand, but they were already on him. Cuffed, cornered, caught. Talia stepped up to the man whose legacy was soaked in secrets. My mom taught me how to repair machines, she said, but broken people, they have to fix themselves. I hope prison gives you that chance. As Preston Langston was led away, cameras captured every second. The Titan's empire rotting at its core was collapsing live before the world's eyes. In the days that followed, Langston Holdings' stock nosedived. Class action suits were filed. Prosecutors tore open decades of corruption, abuse, and medical malpractice buried beneath corporate gloss. Marcus watched the empire implode from the sidelines, feeling grief, yes, but also something new. Relief. The weight of silence had finally lifted. He'd lost his father, his inheritance, but he'd regained something he never thought he'd find: his own soul. Outside the courthouse, Talia found him on the steps. "What now?" she asked. The emerald ring now, a symbol of victory, not shame. Marcus looked up at the skyline, the very towers built on backroom deals and children's pain, including the looming Langston building, soon to be renamed, if it even remained. "Now," he said, "we start over. Not just buildings, people, everything." What no one standing there could have predicted was how that rebuilding would reshape more than just lives. It would shift the city's future. The dynasty of exploitation had crumbled, but something else was rising. Something stronger, smarter, real. 5 years later, on a bright spring morning, Talia Brooks walked the halls of the newly opened Brooks Institute for Young Innovators, a massive campus of labs, classrooms, and invention workshops built on the very ground where Willow Haven once stood. The East Wing circuits are still glitching. Talia, now 15, informed the group of engineers clustered around her. Her keen eyes flicked across a control panel, her mind decoding complex system faults with the same natural instinct she once used to trace a coolant leak on a roadside Mustang. At the rear of the Innovation Center, Marcus Langston mingled with potential donors, dressed not in a suit but jeans and a rolled-up shirt, sleeves smudged with workshop grease. The man who once stood atop a crumbling fortune now walked among dreamers and inventors, his wealth gone, but his purpose reborn. Marcus had donated every cent of his personal fortune to launch the Helix Initiative, no longer a covert exploitation program, but a transparent network built to discover and nurture gifted kids from underserved communities. "We identified 23 uniquely talented students just this quarter," Marcus explained to a small circle of investors. "Each receives a full-ride mentorship, lab access, housing, no strings, no secrets, no agenda, but potential." Even the most cynical former colleagues from Langston Holdings struggled to reconcile this new Marcus with the old. The heir to a legacy of corruption had transformed into a relentless force for good, repairing not just what had been broken, but what had been abandoned. "Talia is about to file her third patent," Dre announced with a grin as he walked past the engineering exhibit. Now the head of the center's applied tech division, he beamed with pride. Harvard, Stanford, and MIT are practically throwing scholarships at her. On one of the central display walls, a permanent exhibit told the whole story. Photographs of Willow Haven's last days. A headline in block print: "Dynasty collapses after teen whistleblower exposes exploitation." News clippings. Video stills of the trial. And in the center, a replica of the emerald ring open to reveal the chip that exposed it all. Meanwhile, behind heavy steel doors, in a medium-security federal prison, Preston Langston sat in silence. Once a titan with billions at his fingertips, now just another forgotten inmate. His name, once spoken with fear and reverence, had become a cautionary tale. His former allies had fled, his wealth seized. "He won't join any rehab program," a guard said with a shrug. "Still thinks he'll rebuild it all someday." What once passed as commanding arrogance was now just a hollow echo in a concrete cell. That evening, the Brooks Institute hosted its very first graduation ceremony. 12 students, once overlooked, underfunded, and underestimated, now stood in gowns, each with job offers or university placements in hand. Talia, still too young to graduate herself, was already revered as a mentor. And as the final speaker, she took the stage. "When I was 10, she began, voice steady, "I fixed a stranger's car on a country road." She twirled the emerald ring on her finger, no longer a symbol of silence, but one of awakening. That moment exposed something ugly, but it also lit the fuse for something new, something better. Marcus watched from the back row, his eyes misting. The girl who once shattered his world had, in truth, rebuilt his soul. "My mom Loretta's to say broken machines can be fixed," Talia continued. "But broken systems? They have to be redesigned. From the ground up. That's what we're doing here. Not just repairs. Reinvention." The next morning, an unexpected letter arrived. The sender, Victoria Langston, Preston's estranged daughter. Once a corporate heiress, now a federal prosecutor who had erased her last name from public life after the trial. We've uncovered 5 more orphanages like Willow Haven, the letter read. Thanks to your testimony, 37 more children have been identified and protected. Some have talents not unlike yours. When you're ready, they'd love to meet you. Talia read it aloud in the kitchen to Marcus, Dre, and Aunt Peaches, her voice quiet with awe. The final piece of the past had fallen into place. What had started with a girl and a broken car had ignited a silent rebellion that shattered an empire and gave birth to a movement. You know what's funny? Marcus said, breaking the silence. My father always swore he was building a legacy. He laughed bitterly. And he did. Just not the one he thought. Talia looked out the window at the campus courtyard, where students now tinkered in solar labs and coded AI from scratch. No wires attached. No one watching from behind mirrored glass. Real power, she said, was never in the skyscrapers or the bank vaults. She smiled softly. It's in what we give others, the power to choose their own future. That evening, as the last light faded behind the Innovation Center, a new sign was unveiled beside the gates, freshly engraved in brushed steel. It read, "Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom." A new world built from the ruins of the old had taken root, and the girl with the grease-stained hands, a broken system behind her, and an emerald ring on her finger had rewritten what legacy really meant. If this story of courage, redemption, and reinvention stirred something in you, subscribe now, because sometimes the smallest acts spark the biggest changes. And sometimes the ones who were never supposed to matter are the ones who change everything.